What is up, y'all? This is Mo. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to the channel. Today, I have a pretty special video that I'm excited to go over with y'all. Okay, over the past couple months, I've been doing a lot of testing on DJI 04 1S whoops. When this system came out a couple months ago now, there was a lot of information about specifically the light, whether or not it was 1S capable. Is it going to be practical to even fly on 1S? Will it fly well? I'm here to tell you that, yeah, it is 1S capable. It can fly pretty good. I mean, it's going to be heavy, and you should do it because it's an amazing experience. But there are a lot of quirks. There are a lot of peculiarities with the DJI 04 system that I kind of had to work through, and I think I found pretty good solutions to those, and I really want to share them with y'all because I have heard of some troubles that people were having with the 1S systems, with the 1S builds. So this is hopefully going to help y'all, and I do recommend if you have DJI, you got to build one of these, man. They are really fun. But whether or not you're looking to build a 65mm 1S capable, and yeah, it flies pretty darn good, a 75mm 1S, maybe with a custom canopy ND filter on that, or whether or not you bought the Meteor 75 Pro bind and fly, maybe having some jello issues, maybe it's not flying the way you want. I'm going to go over some changes that we can make on this specifically. I'm going to go over all the whoops, okay, and I'm going to separate them so you can check out which ones you're most interested in specifically. But I do recommend you listen to the bench portion of the video. I think I'm going to just do a speaking session like this, but in that portion I'm going to go over a lot of things that are important to 04 because, like I said, there are a bunch of things that are kind of weird quirks, like if you want stabilization to work correctly, if you're getting jello, things like that. There are things that I found to work, and yeah, I'm excited to share them with you. So without further ado, let's get into it because it's going to be a sweet video, okay? I'll catch you in a minute. Alright, so we're going to get into some flight footage here. We're going to show all of the whoops, 65, 75, and 75 Pro. But I'm going to start with the 75mm as it's my favorite of the bunch. I like 75 because it can kind of do everything. It can fly outside pretty well. It can fly indoors pretty well. It's kind of the jack of all trades. Versus if you're comparing it to the 65, I rather fly a 65 indoors, but 65s don't really fly as well outdoors. And I actually rather fly the 75 Pro outdoors now that I got it flying right. But I wouldn't really want to fly it indoors as much as I would a 75. So this is a nice middle ground. With 75 we have more motor options, more prop options as well, at least compared to the 75 Pro. So also something to note here. But yeah, this was a pretty cold day. This was back, I don't know, maybe January, the end of January. I've been doing some testing for a bit here. And this is on the 1S 450 mAh battery on the Beta board. And I'm going to switch to some stabilized footage for some proof of concept here. So awesome that this comes from a Whoop, and it's so great. This is gyro flow, by the way. I saw this bus and it really stood out, and then someone was in the window, so I was like, I'm gonna scoot out of here. But yeah, this kind of gives you an idea. Like the Whoop, any of these 04 builds are going to feel heavy if you're comparing them to an analog build or an HD0 AIO build. That's kind of par for the course, but that's not that's not what you should go into these Whoops expecting. You shouldn't go into them expecting this lightweight freestyle machine. You should kind of go into it expecting a heavier, more sedated Whoop. But the plus side is we have just outstanding footage and outstanding penetration. I come in for a landing a bit early here, and it is pretty cold. Hold on, I'm going to talk to us. I think in warmer weather we get like 215, 230, depending on how aggressive we're flying. Because that's a recovery to 3.6, but I'm not too comfortable pushing it in the cold, especially with the battery sag. Although this Beta FC does a good job of keeping the voltage up. Watch it sag. Ready? That was 2.9 sag, and it was still okay. So yeah, so I think if flight time is important to you, well, one, live somewhere warmer, and two, you can go with 550s. It's just a little bit less capable, but you do got to go props in. I'll go over that more in a second. So yeah, I think we get about 2 minutes 30 on a normal day, at least for the Northeast, or a not freezing cold day and not windy day. This is another absolutely horrid windy day. We've had so much wind in the Northeast this winter, but this is using a Beta 550 battery, and the purpose of this was just to see how much flight time I could get out of this Whoop. The 550 is definitely a few grams heavier than the 450, so it is going to affect the flight performance. But for those of you more concerned with flight time and maybe just getting some cinematic type footage, you can expect a pretty decent flight time. I think I get close to 4 minutes here, which is pretty good. Again, it's super windy today, so this is also bringing down our flight time. And it's not the warmest. It's warmer than that other video, of course, but not too bad. I was very impressed that we ended up getting close to 4 minutes out of this, and that was kind of a showcase of how I was flying. But kind of getting back to what I was saying earlier, the 04 just allows for just amazing flight experiences. This is me doing a pseudo Cinewhoop shot from my local pickleball place. They were nice enough, but look at the quality, man. This is a 1S 75mm Whoop. Super non-intrusive, super look, ready? Can't do that with a Cinewhoop. Just ran right into him. It's such a unassumingly small and friendly platform, and you just get this amazing footage out of it. It's just such a crazy experience, these 04 Whoops. And here's a showcase of me using an ND filter up at Green Lakes, the Weebly Northeast Champs. Just gorgeous footage, and I'm not really a cinematographer, so I'm sure this could even look better with proper grading and proper settings, but this is the type of footage that you can expect out of a 1S Whoop. Are you kidding me? Craziness. Absolute craziness. Moving on to the 75 Pro here. Now again, this is using the custom canopy that TC Moore created, which allows for an ND filter, but also more importantly, kind of removes all the jello. It's basically a remix of the Vision 40 canopy from Rotor Riot and all TPU. The problem with the Beta canopy, as much as I wanted to like it, is I think it is too soft. And when we have vibrations from larger motors and larger props, such as 45mm props, 1102 motors, it's just shaking the camera too much. And in a bright day like this, you probably will experience jello. So I'll get more into this later, but if you do have this platform and you do notice a jello issue, switching to a TPU canopy such as this one will greatly help that. And you may already know, we're kind of flying a little bit more aggressively here. The day isn't as windy, but this is the benefit of the larger prop size platform of the 75 Pro here. Is it flies well outdoors. It flies a lot better than a 75 in my opinion. It can handle the weight of the 04 a little bit better, and it's a pretty fun platform to fly. You know, when I originally flew the 75 Pro, I was disappointed with the Jello because I wanted it to work. It felt so good for a 1S swoop with the 04 to fly so well outdoors. And you know, now that I got it working, knock on wood, and I'll go over, you know, how I did in the desk portion of the video later, so definitely check that out. But this is my preferred whoop to fly outdoors with the 04. I gotta say, you know, I'm a huge 75 fan, but for the extra weight, it just handles it better on the Pro. And you know, 04 is just, again, such an amazing experience to fly. Just locked at 50 megabits, you know, no issues whatsoever with range. It's just so crazy, and the fact this is a 1S swoop, man, it's just insanity. Got the HQ 45mm props on here. I do recommend them over the 45mm Gem fans. You know, on the other whoops, I'd say you can pick whatever you're most comfortable with. I fly all HQ props, but on the 45mm specifically, I think the HQ are a lot better balanced, and I think that aids in reducing the Jello that we may be experiencing, or just better flight feel in general. Beta also recommends that now. You know, they told me, because I told them that I was experiencing some Jello issues. I think it's because of the soft mount, and they said, you know, one of the things that they recommend doing is changing the props to the 45mm HQ tri-blade. So if you haven't tried those, give them a try. They're an awesome prop. But as you can see, the flight time is better than the 75mm. I'm going to talk a little bit again, I think, here.
About 3 minutes. Could have went a little bit longer as well. A little cold, but not too cold. Yeah, we got 3.6 recovery, so maybe like 315 of pretty aggressive flying. I mean, you could definitely cruise longer, and with the same beta matrix, we got good potential for sag, so you're not going to brown out. That was close. Pretty windy out here today as well, so yeah, this is a pretty solid platform. It's just trying to make it fly right. I'll get more into that at the desk.
So yeah, the larger platform just ends up handling the weight better, the larger battery, and in this shot we're using an ND filter. This is passed through gyroflow as well, but the 75 Pro is just the better flyer outdoors. It really is. It can handle the extra weight, the extra battery. We have more flight time, despite it being a good amount heavier. I think 37 grams dry versus 30 of the 75. It can handle the weight of the ND filter. It's just an awesome outdoor platform. And you know, this is, again, proof of concept. We have stabilization working on this platform. No noticeable Jello, and it just becomes just a great experience. And here's a little cameo from Niles the Corgi getting mad at the drone. And finally, we're going to take a look at the 65mm 1S build here. This is going to be the essentially the whole battery. I just didn't have the OSD on this flight. It is non-stabilized and a little bit of stabilized footage as well in here for proof of concept. But just note, I'm getting about 1.5 minutes of flight time on my current configuration, which is 25 grams, because I didn't really build for the lightest weight possible. I kind of built for all around, you know, protection as well as somewhat lightweight. So that's what I'm working with here. The most important thing to note about these 65 builds, at least, is the motor choice. I think you're really limited as to what you should pick. I'm using the RCM Power 29,000 0702s here, which aren't very efficient. They are very hard on the battery, but man, do they pack a punch. I'll go over that more in the desk portion of the video here, but I mean, hopefully this goes to show 65 can still rip. It can still rip outdoors, and it is possible on 04. You know, obviously you should probably want to fly this indoors more than anything else. I just like flying outdoors, and you know, if it works outdoors, it's going to work indoors. And I was very pleasantly surprised on how well this thing flew for being such a small boy platform. Speaking of, there's Niles, but you know, 1.5 minutes, take it or leave it, I guess. But the good news is this is some DVR finally, and this is a showcase of the Weebleed 465 mAh stick batteries. They're super long batteries that Weebleed sells. You know, they're the 1S cells that are, you know, narrow, that fit in a typical 300 mAh battery slot. but they are 460 mAh in capacity. So we ended up getting over 3 minutes of outdoor flight with it on a pretty windy day. I mean, anything's kind of windy for a 65 outdoors, but that goes to show, if you were just cruising indoors, doing some cinematic stuff, or just kind of flying around wherever, and, we can get over 3 minutes of flight time with that, which is crazy on a 65, especially for these not really efficient RC and power motors. Just something to note, something cool if you like 65. Alright, for this video, I don't think I'm going to do a traditional desk video where I just point the camera at the quad. We're going to go over each of the quads individually. I'm going to talk to you like this, and I'm going to highlight anything specific to that build I think is worth talking about. If I want to show something as a close-up, I'll do a little B-roll in the background, but we're going to do more of a one-on-one type of thing for this video. And one more thing I want to go over is a constant that I have on all three builds. Right now, all of my builds are using the Beta Matrix 3-in-1 HD. The reason for that is they have an internal BEC that keeps the O4 powered off of the 5-volt, late into battery. Otherwise, if you're using like a traditional flight controller, your 5-amp ESC like Beta Cross, and you wire up the O4 to the VBAT, you're going to brown out pretty early. And depending on how much power you're demanding other places like the motors, you can do a punch out and brown out pretty much immediately. That's not the case with the Beta 3-in-1 Matrix. Again, right now it's the only real board that I found that does it, and it does it pretty well. They got 12 amp ESCs. It's a pretty resilient board. I haven't broken one yet. I am recommending it as of this time. If anything changes, I'll update y'all. I'm sure there's going to be more boards out in the future, and you could probably use, independent 5-volt boosters. Like I know Fractal's probably going to be coming out with one. But as far as like really small builds where space is a concern, this board is proven to be pretty good for me, so I am recommending it here. Alright, so we're going to start it off here with the smallest of the bunch, the 65mm 1S. Now, it is possible to build a 65. Hopefully the flight footage kind of showed that, illustrated that, and it's fun. This is a really small platform. It's quiet, and it's fun just to fly around and explore. Primarily for indoors, I would use this, although you can fly it outdoors. So this is definitely an option. The most important things I want to talk about when it comes to 65mm is the runtime being less than desirable, and the motor choice. Then we'll get into the canopy, but expect, I would think, about 1.5 to 2 minutes maximum on a 300 mAh battery, depending on the weight of your build and the motors that you choose. Now, if you don't like that flight time, if you want more, you're not going to find it in 65 unless you go real low kV motors and just kind of cruise around, or you use the Weebleed stick batteries, the long ones. They're, I think, at 465 mAh. Actually pretty good. It's a big battery. It's going to weigh the quad down. But these RC and power motors, man, it chewed it up. And, you get a really long flight time. So if you wanted to fly indoors, take some indoor cinematic footage or just kind of cruise around, that battery can definitely do the job for you. The motor choice is a little interesting, and I think you're going to want to go high kV. Now, these are the RC and power 29,000 0702 motors, and the KV is a little misleading because these motors are just insane, but they're very inefficient. They heat up their battery like no other. And I only get 1.5 minute flight time, but that 1.5 minutes is kind of nuts. These motors make the quad feel like almost a lightweight quad, at the expense of probably battery health in the long term. So I don't necessarily recommend these motors. They are good and powerful. But I think we should probably lean toward more efficient motors. Generally, happy model motors are more efficient. I would just advise on a higher KV. These are 29,000. In reality, they're probably well into the 30s. I would say the lowest I recommend on a happy model variant would be the Weebleed 32,500 0702s. I think that is a pretty good fit, a pretty good spot for this platform. I assume you're going to get more efficiency out of those motors than you are with these 29,000s from RCNP. You can even go the 40,000 kV 0702s. That might be pushing it, but it could be fun, just like these 29,000s are. Or if you're really not looking to fly too aggressively, you can bump it down to 27,000, maybe 25,000 0702s, but at that point you're strictly just, I'm going to fly in a straight line indoors type of thing. But, that's completely fine. DJI 04 is fun to fly in general. So if you want that type of thing, you'll gain efficiency. Maybe get like 215 or more out of a 300 mAh battery. It's just fun. And it can be done. Hopefully I kind of have illustrated that. The canopy I went with, and all of the canopy files are going to be down below, is a Vision 40 remix by TC Moore. And this is a Mob 6 hard canopy adapter that I found on Thingiverse. I'm going to put both of them below. That's what I chose. You can certainly experiment and try your own. But I will say that I do have stabilization on this platform, which is something I'm going to go over on each of them. Because stabilization varies, I guess, on how easy it is to obtain. On the larger platforms, it can be hard to get good stabilization. On a smaller platform, it's easier. You can still run into some issues, but having a TPU softer canopy, making sure your props are brand new, the motors are smooth, and the tune is good are all important things when trying to get working stabilization. Also, I always recommend 48 PWM frequency in Blue Jay on whoops. I don't really like 96. You can try it, but be aware that 96 has been known to maybe cause issues with stabilization. So if you have an otherwise clean build and you're on 96, flip it to 48 and see if that solves it. You lose some efficiency, but you may gain some smoothness, and that you might be able to stabilize the footage. Finally, the frame. I went with the Cockroach V3. It's a little bit harder of a frame. I wanted something not too soft, as I didn't know if that would be better or worse for vibration dampening, again, for stabilization purposes. And this frame is pretty resilient. You certainly can choose, any frame you'd like. Probably the Mob 6 2024 is at the limit of softness, but it could be you're going to save weight over this frame, and it probably won't be an issue when it comes to stabilization, and it is lighter. The Beta 65 airframe, also a good choice. I would say, yeah, maybe stick with one of those. I was going to do a light AF frame, which Newbie Drone also offers, but I wanted a balance between durability and flight performance, which is why I went with the combination I did. And this is sitting at about 25 grams dry, which is, not the best for a 65, but it flies pretty good, and I'm happy with it. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at the 75mm 1S build of the 04, my personal favorite here. Can handle the weight a bit better than a 65 can, while still being small enough to fly indoors, but has better outdoor capabilities. We get about 2 minutes and 30 seconds of flight time with the 450 mAh battery, which isn't too shabby, which bumps up to over 3.5 minutes of cruising on a 550 lava battery, which is pretty sweet. Also have a custom canopy here that can take an ND filter. We'll get to that a bit more in a second as well here. But if you're looking to build up a 75, one of the most important things is the motor selection. Again, I'm going to be a proponent for a higher KV because we have extra weight on this thing. It's about 30 grams dry. So we want a higher KV to kind of counteract that. I have the RC Power 0802 27,000 KV motor. I think they are a little bit undervalued in their KV. I think they're a bit higher than that. They fly really well, very smooth. I would also recommend the Weebleed vegan motors. They're 25K 0802s with a 1.5 millimeter shaft. I believe Tiny Whoop also makes one. It's the Heads motor. I believe the snowblowers. I don't know. I think they're a 1.5 millimeter shaft as well. Also a good option. This way, if we do get into some accidents, we have a larger shaft that's not going to bend as easily as a 1 millimeter shaft will. And maybe in the not so distant future, there's going to be another 0802 coming out with a 1.5 millimeter shaft with higher KV, and you may even know them. I don't know. That would be cool too. But I would go for 0802s. 1002s can also do the job. I know some people like 1002s. I've just always been a proponent of using the lightest motor that can handle the weight, and I think even though it's pushing it, the 0802s can still handle a 30-gram 04 rig. One thing that helped me tune this thing was changing prop orientation to in versus out. Don't know the science behind it. I heard a couple people say it here and there. I know Ciotti was a proponent of it, and it does seem to work. I had a harder time tuning HD heavier quad setups on props out, switching the props in helps mitigate some of that prop wash. It changes the flight feel, at least it does for me. It feels a little bit more sluggish. Don't know the science behind it again, but it's a good trade, and I still feel like I have a lot of control and freestyle capability on props in. But I guess if you're running into tuning problems, switch the props in. It may solve some stuff for you. The frame that I went with is the Beta Air frame. It's a really light option. It worked really well in this case. If you're looking for something a bit more robust, maybe a Mob 7 V4, still probably the most durable. You're going to gain a little bit of extra weight there, but you're going to make up for it in some resiliency. The canopy is, again, TC Moore's Vision 40 Remix with ND filter capability or compatibility. If you get the ND filters for the 04 from Flywoo, they actually kind of screw right onto the canopy, so you can use ND filters on your 1S Whoop. What a world we live in. Finally, the prop choice. I'm only flying HQ props on my Whoops. These are the HQ 40mm ultralights. They also make them in 1.5mm shafts, and they also make them in tri-blades. The prop's just so good. Very well balanced. I have them on. I'm not saying GemFan 40mm won't work by any means. This is just all I use, and I've had really good luck with them. I can't recommend them enough. One final thing I have to touch on is the stabilization. Stabilization sometimes doesn't work on 04, and the main reasons why is vibrations, in my opinion, getting to the canopy. The first thing to do is check your PWM frequency in Blue Jay. Make sure you're not on 96. Switch it to 48 if you are. I think quads fly better on 48 in general, in my opinion, but some people say that fixes the problem for them entirely. If that doesn't work, you have to re-examine your motors. Make sure they're nice and smooth, no bent shafts. Spin them up in beta flight, listen to them. Make sure your props are brandy new. Throw a new set on there, see if that solves them. Make sure your screws in the canopy aren't too tight, not too loose, but give them some space. Same thing with the camera cage screws, not too tight, not too loose. And finally, the tune. Make sure you have a decent tune on it. 75 isn't too bad to stabilize. If you run into some problems, do a checklist, do all of those things. If everything is smooth, you should get good stabilized footage out of it. Finally, we have the 75 Pro, which is a 45mm Whoop. This is essentially the bind and fly, but I made some changes on here that I think are kind of for the better. Allows for stabilization, at least in this configuration. Removes jello that a lot of people were having. And yeah, just kind of flies pretty darn good. Now, I like the larger platform of the 75 Pro outdoors. I think it flies well outdoors. It doesn't get affected as much by the wind, and it is a bit heavier, but it handles itself well outdoors. It also handles extra weight, such as the ND filter, without an issue. The only problem is that in its default configuration, with the Beta canopy and with the GemFan 45mm props, people had some issues, mostly with jello in the image. I think the jello is caused by either unbalanced props or maybe some vibrations from the motors reaching the camera. Beta has their soft mounted camera solution where it's like 4 rubber grommets basically on a floating camera. And I think, the vibrations, very small vibrations coming from the motors or props got to that camera, started shaking it. The first thing I did when I had this bind and fly is I flew it with their canopy because I liked the idea of having a soft-mounted floating canopy. I switched the props out to the HQ 45mm ultralights, amazing props, but I still had jello issues. I then switched the canopy to the same Vision 40 Remix by TC Moore with ND filter compatibility, and the jello pretty much went away. It all went away. So, if there was any vibration there, it was getting eaten up by the TPU canopy. It didn't reach the camera, and that was my fix for that. A problem, though, people also have with this platform is stabilization. Now, this one is the hardest to stabilize, and I've seen people have issues where they couldn't stabilize it no matter what. The only changes I made on this platform to get stabilization is, 1, change the PWM frequency from 96, because that's way too high for a 45mm propped Whoop to be on anyway. Go to 48, that's what I'm on. I changed the props to the HQ 45mm tri-blade props, amazing props, super balanced. That's all I fly on these micros. Same 1102 motors. Switched the canopy, obviously, to this TPU canopy. Made sure the screws weren't too tight, nothing too snug, nothing too loose. Didn't even touch the tune. This is on stock tune, and stabilization works for me. Don't know. I did this with the antenna as well. I routed the antenna underneath. Where am I looking at? Underneath, and then out the back. Beta also said, make sure the MIPI cable isn't touching the canopy or anything like that. Mine's touching the canopy. It still works. There's just so many different variables which can cause stabilization issues. And if you're not even interested in stabilization to begin with, this is a darn good platform for outdoor flying. It doesn't get affected as much by the wind. It's still powerful. It's not as responsive because heavier build, heavier motors take a little bit more to spin up. But it's still a really awesome whoop, especially for a bind and fly. But just be aware, if you get it stock, you may not have stabilization. Those changes, I think, will help you get stabilization. And yeah, it's a pretty darn good flying platform. It really is. Using 550 lava batteries, you can even use 450 if you wanted to save some extra weight. This is a good option. It's just kind of primarily for outdoor. You can certainly fly it indoor, but it rounds out the trio nicely. We got the primarily outdoor quad here. We got the 75, which is a mix of both, and the 65, which is primarily indoor. All of which are viable, all of which are capable. It just takes a little bit of TLC, and this is the most difficult platform to get stabilization working on. But I think that's kind of it for each individual whoop. And now I'm in a new outfit. It's been a couple days since I recorded the intro and all the other parts of the video. I put a lot of time into this video. Hopefully it helps, I guess. I went over everything I wanted to go over, but the most important part, the takeaway here, okay, is that these DJI 1S whoops not only are possible, okay, they are necessary. They are necessary, and if you have DJI and you like flying whoops, even if you've never flown a whoop before, okay, anybody at all, build one of these. They're super fun platform. They're super safe, quiet, and now that you have the 4K onboard, great range, man, there's no reason not to. It's a really fun experience, and I can't recommend them enough. Unfortunately, I probably didn't cover every possible problem that we may run into. So if you do run into some issues that you're unsure of with the 04 builds, just leave them in a comment. I'll do my best to answer the questions for as long as I can. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. But yeah, man, they're just a lot of fun, and hopefully this video kind of pointed you in the right direction. They aren't too difficult to build. Again, watch the desk portion of the video. I go over certain peculiarities with the DJI 04 system, certain problems you may run into. Outside of those quirks, it's really just a normal whoop build, a normal kind of heavy whoop build, but it's a real blast to fly, beautiful visuals, and yeah, I can't deny it's definitely a nice facet of FPV, images and everything. Looks aren't everything, but they help sometimes, I guess. I don't know what I'm saying. This has been Mo. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.